Hello everyone, welcome to the MongoDB tutorial series. And in this video, we are going to discuss about one thing called as NoSQL database. So what exactly a database is? A database is nothing but a mechanism, or you can say a database is mostly used to store your data and retrieve your data. So there are various database management systems. So there are total three different kinds of database management system. The first one is RDBMS, which is nothing but relational database management system. The best example of RDBMS is, you can say, MySQL database. The second one is OLAP, which is nothing but online analytical processing. And the third most important called as NoSQL. NoSQL stands for not only SQL. So your MongoDB is open source NoSQL database. But what exactly a NoSQL database is? So we'll learn something about NoSQL database, and then we'll learn about MongoDB. Okay. So what exactly a NoSQL database is? So NoSQL database is completely different than your relational database. Like in relational database, all the data is stored in a tabular format, right? You create a table, you define a schema, then you set data type, you insert some columns. In short, in a relational database, all the data is stored in rows and columns. But in NoSQL, there is no concept of tables, there is no concept of columns and rows. Okay, so then what, then how the data is stored? Basically data is stored in a document format, and there are other formats too. So what, so it is written over here, one advantage of NoSQL database is that they're very easy to scale, and they are much faster in most type of operations that we perform on the database. So basically these two are the advantages of NoSQL database. That means we can easily scale up our database. Mostly NoSQL database is used to handle real-time database. Okay, real-time data. If your data is keep changing, then mostly NoSQL database is preferred. Okay. So when you are dealing with huge amount of data, then NoSQL database is your best choice. Okay. So if you have large amount of data or big data, you can say, then in that case, NoSQL database is very useful. So we'll discuss the limitations, some of the limitations of relational database. Uh, um, the very first limitation, or you can say kind of disadvantages of relational database. The first thing, you need to define a structure, then you need to create a schema, and then only you can process the data. And there is one more limitation is like, in relational database, you to handle JSON format data is very difficult. Okay, like what exactly a JSON format data is? If you don't know what exactly a JSON format data, basically the JSON stores your data in a key value pair. Okay, so if you have your data in a JSON format, or if you have keys and values with you, then you, it is very difficult to store them and access them using relational database. So if you have JSON format data, then it is better to go with NoSQL database. So with the help of NoSQL database, you can easily access, or you can easily process your JSON format data. Okay, so we'll see what are the limitations in NoSQL database. There are certain things that are missing in NoSQL. The one thing, joins are not supported. Okay, so joins are nothing but one concept in our relational database. And you can't have constraints. Okay, constraints are nothing but set of rules. Okay, like there is no concept of constraints in NoSQL database. So there are various things that are missing in NoSQL database, but these are the main things which are missing in NoSQL database. Now what we are going to do, we'll learn when to go for NoSQL database. Okay, so this is a most commonly asked question from a student, like when you should go for NoSQL, when we should use a relational database. So When to go for NoSQL database? Okay, so there are certain reasons when you want to store or retrieve huge amount of data. So if you have very large amount of data, then go with NoSQL database. If relationships between the data you store is not that important, like in relational database, the the main focus is on relationships, right? We find out the relationship between two tables and so on. So if those relationships are not that much important for you, then it is better to go with NoSQL database. The data is not structured and changing over a time. That means if you have a dynamic data, then in that case you can use NoSQL database. Okay, joins and constraints are not required, then go with NoSQL database. And in case the data is growing continuously and you need to scale the database regular to handle the data, then it is always better to go with NoSQL database. So here are some conditions, or you can say you can consider this point if you are confused between relational, whether I want to use relational database or NoSQL database. So in next video we are going to discuss about MongoDB. Okay,